In today's video, we're going to be having a conversation on why you suck at Pokemon investing. But before we jump into it, as always, we do weekly giveaways. All you have to do to enter is leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. But jumping into it today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm officially back. So sorry for being gone for so long. If you guys don't know, I just got back from my honeymoon. I just recently got married, so I promise that I won't be gone for as long as of a hiatus as I took for hopefully a very long time, if ever. But yeah, so I wanted to come back and kind of switch things up and just try something different. If people like the whiteboard, we'll try it again. But we'll go back to our regularly edited videos next week. But without further ado, discussing why some of you guys may suck at Pokemon investing, whether you realize it or not. And I want this to be a video as well that it's not just Pokemon investing, but it's also just anything having to do with the general selling of Pokemon products. So for starters, the one thing I'm going to try and do is obviously, I apologize because I'm going to turn my face. So sometimes the audio quality might go like in and out as I turn my face. So I apologize with that. But the number one thing I feel like people suck at investing is you can't do math. And what I mean by that basically is one of the things I hear a lot of times is that people hate the concept of paying for shipping, right? People have this like notion that because you're paying shipping, that automatically your prices are going to be more expensive, when in a lot of situations that's not true at all, right? It could be a situation where, let's say that someone's offering a booster box. We'll just make it simple, right? Someone's offering a booster box for $98, right? So that person's going to be paying $98. Man, I might need to make this a little bit larger, but someone's paying $98 for a booster box, right? And they're offering you $10 shipping, right? That's how much it's going to cost for you to pay for shipping. Versus someone, for example, is like, hey, we're not going to charge you for shipping, but we're going to charge you $100 for you to pay for that booster box, right? Well, you might be saying to yourself, okay, well, if you just take the general cost calculations, you add the two together, you're ending up with 110 as your, 108 as your overall price point. And so you're saying, okay, well, I'm actually going to be spending drastically more because of the shipping cost. But if you're going to a place that has a binary shipping price, which is going to be just a flat rate up until a certain point, or it just stays kind of at that price, just flat regardless, after you've taken this number and you've multiplied it by 6, you officially have actually gotten a better deal. And it's funny that I feel like I'm having this conversation because the amount of times I've seen people send me links to like a specific website for a certain deal thinking that it's good and then disregarding other deals because it happened to offer free shipping versus not. I was like, wait, why is this a better deal? I can get it cheaper. And they're like, oh yeah, but they're going to charge you shipping at checkout. And then you go play with the numbers. Now, granted, there is going to be instances in which people can't obviously afford to pay for the shipping costs because, they're only buying so much of the specific booster box, right? If someone's buying 1, 2, 3 booster boxes, where in this example, obviously, we're discussing it as a case quantity. So that's an instance in terms of where this doesn't apply. But generally speaking, as you tend to buy more, there's a lot of websites that want to incentivize you, whether it be by offering discounted rates or offering you like a general flat shipping price that you can start to gain value for once you've bought in a certain amount. Another thing that kind of ties into this, I'll still make this a part of number one, is, oh my goodness gracious, it is crazy to me how people fall so quickly to the psychology of the 99. And what I mean by that is it's like 99.99. Oh my goodness gracious, it's under $100. That's insane. I can't believe I'm getting such a bad, $100? Oh no, hate $100. $100 is the worst, but $99.99, now that's a freaking steal of a deal. There are so many instances in which people will fall for this psychology or psychological trick of literally underpricing by a penny And it's something that I feel like people really need to come in with and not try and fall victim to the idea of that, 1 penny difference, which you might not think it's something to discuss, but even I myself will find myself being like, man, that's such a good deal. That's only $700. And then my wife will be like, $700? That's $7.99. It's actually $800. Where did this penny turn into $100 difference? So stuff like that, where obviously, you have to be able to do the math and just, sit down and say, okay, am I equating value as much as I think I am when it comes to buying certain products of certain quantity? Moving on to number 2, obviously number 1 being you can't math. Sorry if my hat gets in the way a couple of times, but you guys need to be better at calculating your overall time. One of the things that I hear a lot of times people will take not into consideration is how you're going to value your overall time when it comes to selling your product. And for myself, I feel as if this goes both ways, right? There's instances in which people will want to make a profit on something. A perfect example is, right, why the TCG Direct program works is because although you're saying to yourself, yeah, I am paying anywhere between 35, 40, plus percent additional fees compared to what I would usually pay, you're actually going to be saving yourself a lot of time, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you're shipping out 1,000 cards and you're making, let's say, for the sake of the argument, right, you're making $500 and it takes you about 4, hours or so to be able to ship it out. And let's say your net ends up being like 20%. So you're realistically walking away with about $100. It took you 4 hours. Congratulations. You made $25 an hour, right? Versus you went and you did the exact same thing, but it was envelope orders. And now that envelope order took you, for the same exact price point, 8 hours to do. You now just made half as much. And so a lot of times people like to look at the overall margins when they're considering, okay, is it something that is going to make sense for me when it comes to investing in something, right? And the math is just not being done, right? I would much rather work only 4 hours and make more money than I would, say, work more hours and make more money, but the overall equation is going to actually calculate it out to making less, right? And that's something that I feel like I myself have learned through running a business, is when it comes to my overall time, right? I've obviously been putting a lot of sweat equity into the wholesale program. I've been putting a lot of sweat equity into just overall investing in my business as a whole. And for myself, I was spending for a good couple of months 80 to 100 hours. And now, obviously, a large portion of that was because of growing pains. But from that, I've learned to not only come up with programs that are more efficient, but I've been able to try and find areas in my life to where I can cut general waste or waste of time. And for myself, I look at that as a net positive, even if hypothetically speaking, my revenue doesn't directly change by that much. It's opening myself up to find other areas of within my free time to now generate additional revenue outside of what I'm currently doing. So I think it's really important for the purpose of time management. One thing I really want to have a conversation about, that time and time again, I hear this misconception that it's, always best to invest in Pokemon product, period, right? And just sit on it. And long term is the way to go. Now, for a lot of people, it is going to make sense if it is your primary job, doing something else, and this is more or less a side hustle for you. But even then, there's a ton of opportunities for you to still make money by doing minimal work where you're missing out on 20, 30, 40, 50 plus percentage returns. And so what do I mean by that? Basically, if I give you a situation where, let's say that you bought a Lost Origin booster box, for the sake of this example, right? This Lost Origin booster box you bought for $100, right? And now if we say to ourselves that it has about, and we're going to try and make this simple math, right? Within a 10-month period, it's going to go up 100% in value, right? So it goes up to $200. Now, let's say that rather than you waiting 10 months and gaining that, 100% return, you instead decided to take your money elsewhere and you went and invested it in other seal product, or not even saying invested it, but you found other product that you could instead flip, and your average monthly return was 10%. You took that same $100 and said, listen, I'm not going to invest it in a Lost Origin booster box. I am going to instead just give me something that gives me a 10% month over month, right? So by your first month, you'll have made $110, right? And then once you've gone to your second month, you take that exact $110 and we'll say, hey, I'm just going to do another 10%, right? What does that math end up coming out to be? Well, now the following month, it's going to obviously be, okay, what's an additional 10% of that? That's now going to come out to $121. Obviously, in this example, it doesn't feel like it's a lot of money, but it's going to continuously compound month over month to the point in which if we were going to compound this exact number on a monthly basis of 10%, that valuation, rather than it going to $200, you're instead going to have it go all the way up to $259. Sorry if my face is in the way, but more or less, you're missing out on an additional $59, aka if we're talking about from the original growth point of $100, another 59% in potential profit. And I know people might be saying, Eli, I think that's too much work. Why would I try and grind and hustle, month over month? And obviously, going back to it once again, if you're someone that has a full-time business that you run that's separate from this, or it's something where you have a job that this is more of a side hustle for you, then obviously a month-to-month situation is not going to make sense. But there's been many instances where I've talked with people and they've been like, oh, Eli, look at the price point of, I don't know, Evolving Skies is not the best example because it's the one outlier, but let's say like a Chilling Reign booster box, right? Oh, Eli, look at the price point of the Chilling Reign booster box. It's now sitting at $150. I went in and bought it at $75, $80, $85, $90, whatever price point you got in at. Look at how much money I've been able to make from that. Did you get in and invest in a lot of Chilling Reign? And I say to them, no, I didn't. And the reason for that is because although it's fantastic that for a lot of people before shipping and fees, they were able to make anywhere between 70, 80+% return, the time that it took for it to get to that point, I mean, let's think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The price point bottom for Chilling Reign was sometime early 2022. We are now at the back end, Q4, technically, if I'm correct, of 2023. So to get to the price point that it's at, it's taken about a year and a half. Within that price point, there has been so many other opportunities that I have taken with money that I didn't tie up that has yielded me 200, 300, 400% returns over the long period of time. Not obviously all at once, but compounded progressively. And that's one of the things that I try and teach a lot of people within our wholesale program. If you want to check that out, links down in the description below. You can find the link to our Patreon for that. Get access to Magic, Flesh and Blood, Wholesale, Pokemon, and so many other things at wholesale prices. You want to make sure that when it comes to the product that you're going to purchase, it's one that's going to be liquid and you're going to have an opportunity to constantly make progressive returns, right? It's kind of like you look at the situation right now with 151. Obviously, everyone's scrambling for 151. Everyone's saying to themselves, 151, this is the item that I need to buy. This is the item that I need to sit on long term, or this is it. This is the time we're going to make money. But other than that, Pokemon's dead because you've got Obsidian Flames, which has been absolute, a tragedy. You've got Paradox prices already crashing, which we'll talk about in a later video. You've got so much negative sentiment going on in the market. Where is the ultimate opportunity? Whereas if you go and take a look at how distributors have been acting, there's been a sheer panic when it comes to the overall price disruption within the market. And that leads into my third point, which is this is such a common one which I feel like it shouldn't have to be said. Leading into number 3, so sorry for my handwriting, it's not the best. It comes out to be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful, right? Like going back to the original example where I said you can't do math, right? A lot of people, they end up doing the math and they say to themselves, man, it is such a better deal for me to buy with free shipping than it is without, even though we know that in volume. You take this exact concept and then you add it to the time cost analysis concept, kind of like what we discussed with the TCG Direct program, and you tie this in to part number 3, which is, being greedy when others are fearful and vice versa. The reason why I say this is because volume is going to win the game for you, right? And now this is talking more to the business side of things than the investor, but I still think it can really hold true because ultimately at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that I've been able to take advantage of since the prices have been correcting is negotiating more with distributors on discount pricing, right? And because of that, it's opened up a lot of avenues and a lot of opportunity for me to get booster box prices for much cheaper, right? Just to kind of speak to it with you guys, with the, overall panic that's been going on in the market, my original price point that I was buying booster boxes for was $95.50. Well, we're going into the phase for the wholesale program where we're going to be able to buy booster boxes in the future for $90 a piece for all new set releases. And that's something that we were only able to negotiate because we looked at how the market was right now and we said to ourselves, hey, for the longest time, it's been a game of allocated product. And if you obviously want to get product, you have to be lucky enough to get the allocations. But now that booster boxes are more readily available for the Scarlet and Violet era, if you want us to pick it up, you better be offering us discounted prices. And that's been continuing to happen where we did a negotiated price for Lost Origin Silver Tempest booster boxes, where, like I said before, I was pushing it a ton on the channel, $102.50 a piece for Lost Origin Silver Tempest booster boxes. That deal has since passed, but we're going to continue to do that exact same system and move on to the next item as there's going to be constant opportunities for us to negotiate and be able to find ways to generate revenue. So, and how this relates, obviously, I'm comparing it to my own overall program, but how this relates to you is if you're someone that is constantly trying to find ways to generate additional revenue and you ask yourself the question, how are certain people able to sell at a certain price point? It's usually because either one, they're selling at a loss, or 2, it's because they've done what I did with negotiating with distributors. And I think you should do the exact same thing for businesses that are trying to jump ship, right? And if you have a storefront that you notice is trying to just absolutely dump a ton of product, and you know that there's a possibility for you to come in and pick them up for the cheap, I think those are opportunities you can really take advantage of by negotiating. And let's say you're a smaller fry, right? You're someone that's not sitting on several $1,000s. You can still implement this exact same strategy by going to Facebook Marketplace groups, right? The more you're able to typically buy from someone, usually they're a lot more willing to negotiate, right? Because you're helping expend their overall capital, which ultimately at the end of the day is the most valuable point of this all. It's being the person that's going to take advantage of the market and not say to yourself, oh my goodness gracious, prices are crashing, these products are bricks, time to just turn away. It's no, everyone sees these products as bricks. Maybe it's time for me to take an opportunity and find someone that wants to flash sell it because they're fearful and take advantage of that by getting in while the prices are cheaper. That's how you saw a lot of individuals become extremely wealthy during the '08 crash. They took advantage of the overall fear and sheer panic that a lot of people had during that time. And I think you can start to transition and see that, especially with Paradox, where from what we've been seeing, the set so far looks great. And there's going to be a lot of cards that are still to be released and still to be showcased for that set. So I think that could be a potential really good opportunity that a lot of people really need to take advantage of when it comes to the potential fear that's being pushed in, whether you are going and negotiating pricing or not. you're going and still picking up product that you know is going to do well, because booster boxes, time and time again, are some of the best performing investments when it comes to not only Pokemon, but just investing in general, outpacing S&P and so many other things. And so it, for a while there was being sold for $90 a piece, if I'm correct. Obviously, you had to buy 4 cases on Safari Zone, and other sites were selling it for that $95, $50 price point, which is extremely important to take into consideration on, hey, maybe I should take advantage of this and get in cheap now. If you are one of those long-term guys, obviously, if you're someone that is not long-term, then it might be something that looking at other opportunities that are going to be good, good, consistent month-over-month returns that you should kind of look towards. Now, my last one, and arguably one of the most important ones that I feel like people really, really need to take into consideration. And these, once again, are all encompassing ideas that tie into one another. If you're someone that is wanting to be a good investor, if you're someone that's wanting to be a good kind of, I know people might say flipper. I hate the word flipper, but flipping in my aspect is you're getting in a good price point and you're selling in a short-term period, right? I think that's separate from scalpers. But if you're wanting to be someone that makes a really good short-term play, you need to always be liquid. And now people might say, well, I don't know what that means, Eli. I think something that a lot of people really don't take into consideration, especially when we're going back to the question of time cost analysis, is if, for example, you are going and saying to yourself, right, oh, look, Safari Zone is offering booster boxes at $90 a piece. That's such a great deal, right? That is such a great deal. I want to go buy 4 cases of them, right? If you were to go do that, right now, or let's say you did it a couple weeks ago when they listed it, I don't know if it's available yet or if it's still available, but if you're to do that, you're going to have your money locked up for the next month to month and a half. Now, obviously, if you are a long-term investor type, then this doesn't apply to you, right? You don't care. You're saying to yourself, who cares? I'm looking at this as a long-term investment. I'm only picking up items that I want to find for a cheap price. And for myself, this isn't really something that matters to me. But if you are someone that wants to make these returns on your overall investment and you want to compound it with that, once again, time cost analysis that's being done, then it's extremely important for you to not go in and try and save a couple of bucks over the prospect where you can go somewhere else and pick up these booster boxes for, let's say, slightly more, around the same price, but they're not going to charge you until the day of release. Because now you have a full month to month and a half window for you to take that capital and roll it into something else that you can then flip. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the more you lock up your funds, the more you're going to be devaluing your dollar, because inflation is still a thing. And obviously, yes, you're going to be locking up your funds for an item that ultimately you're getting a good deal on. But during that period where the price of that item in hypothetical theory is going to stay low, you're actually going to be losing money leading up until the price point if it doesn't move at all, right? If, let's say, by release date, the price stays at $90, $91, $92, $93, because of the current inflationary rate that we're still dealing with in the economy right now, you're literally losing money by locking it up and not putting it in another form of an investment or a flip. And, obviously, when it comes to that, once again, at the end of the day, if for you, you're like, I'm not trying to really think about it, this is something that is more or less of a long-term game, then I totally understand it. That makes sense to me. But being able to find investments that you can flip short-term, make a nice return because you saw an opportunity, and then eventually roll that into something else where you could have waited another month and the price still would have been the same, but during that period of time where you didn't invest in that item and you got in something that was going to give you a return, and now you're able to buy more of that specific product that originally you weren't going to buy a ton of, all of a sudden that changes the general equation of your overall long-term growth, and it's something that you can still do by just going in and selling some product, free yourself up with some liquidity, and moving on to the next opportunity that you may like. Now, kind of bringing these 4 concepts all together, let's kind of go over the main points. 1, we need to be doing the math on things, right? $19.99 versus $20. Does it make sense? Are you obviously saving? Don't fall for that mental trap. 2, when doing calculations on if, of course, saving money is going to make sense on not paying for shipping versus paying for shipping, being able to do the math. Same concept applies when paying for fees. Sometimes it's going to make sense if, hypothetically speaking, you're going to be charged for a specific product with an additional, 1, 2, 3% fee, whether you're using a credit card or other real world examples, versus you're just having a flat rate fee, making sure that you're always doing the math when it comes to your overall investment and getting in the best price point. Obviously, this once again plays into the point of if you are going to get the best price point, making sure that it's going to not end up losing you money, because it's going to end up costing you a lot of time doing tons of research trying to find a specific item that is going to be at a discounted rate, rather than spending a couple bucks more to pay for an item that is ultimately going to not matter in the long run. And then also, of course, taking into that, once again, consideration of how much of that money is going to be locked away. Is it going to be killed by inflation? Is it going to be killed by you not keeping that money liquid, so that when it comes time for you to get in other opportunities and constantly be going in and out, you could be generating so much additional revenue? Once again, this can still apply to those that are long-term investors. Rather than sitting on product and just waiting 5 to 10 years, you could still end up making money by going into an investment and then flipping it 6 months to a year down the road, just because you're constantly reinvesting and getting in other opportunities, and making sure, obviously, when finally tying this all together, that you're taking advantage of the market by not missing out on those opportunities, because you're listening to the noise, you're listening to the panic, and you're falling victim to that. But instead, you're taking advantage and going in to the plays that might not seem the most obvious, because everyone else is wanting for the easy layups that, ultimately speaking, might not end up making the most sense, because you're going to be paying a premium for an item that you might not get a return on, versus you can sometimes get easy sleeper plays. You can negotiate prices because people are trying to get rid of it, and then ultimately end up making more money in the long term because of it. So these are important factors and things I want you guys all to take into consideration. To be quite honest with you, there's still a lot more that I feel like ties into this, but these are more or less the main points of this. Obviously, this is both looking from the business side and the investing side, so I feel as if you can take value out of both of these things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as someone who plays into both aspects of that, as someone who runs a business with the wholesale program and is constantly taking advantage of opportunities to flip and keep my money liquid and constantly creating a return, but also as someone who's constantly diversifying themselves and having a little bit of assets set off aside from a long-term play, it's never bad to be vested in both of these opportunities, both these situations, if you have the time, and always keeping yourself kind of diverse from risk. But as far as it goes, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, found value out of it. Glad to be back. But until then, I will see you guys on Thursdays Live. Peace.